All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to get to the very heart of what makes an action good or evil. And we'll be using a really fascinating framework from a classical text, the Yogacara Bhumishastra, to help us understand our own actions in a totally new way.
You know, it's a question we've all thought about. But according to this text, the answer isn't just some simple checklist of do's and don'ts. It's actually way more profound, and it takes us right to the very source of our intentions. Okay, so to really unpack this, we need to start with a core idea from the text, something called defilements. Think of this as the soil, really, from which all of our experiences grow. It's a starting point for everything we feel and everything we do. Now, what the text lays out is this powerful kind of chain reaction. It's like a set of dominoes. It all starts with klesha. That's the inner turmoil in our minds. That inner state then pushes the next domino, which is our karma, our actions. And those actions, well, they go on to shape our entire reality. So let's zoom in on that very first domino because it's the absolute root of the whole process. We're talking about that mental state known as klesha. So what exactly is a klesha? We're not just talking about being in a bad mood here. It's deeper than that. Think of it like a fundamental static or restlessness in your mind. You know that inner friction you feel when you're jealous or angry or frustrated? That's a klesha in action, and its very nature is to disturb your peace. And what's so interesting is how the original text describes it. It says a klesha is naturally unquiet. That means it's not something we consciously choose. It just arises, and once it's there, it creates this self-perpetuating cycle of mental disturbance. It just keeps on turning. So, what creates this unquiet state? Well, the text lists a bunch, but here are some of the heavy hitters: greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. These are basically the primary fuels for all that inner turmoil. Okay, so we've got this inner chaos, right? This unquiet mind. But so what? How does that actually do anything out in the world? Well, that brings us to the next link in the chain, the concept of karma. Now, when we hear the word karma, a lot of us think of some kind of cosmic fate. But that's not what this is about. In this text, it's defined very practically. It literally means to make or to do. It's the intentional actions, what we do with our bodies, say with our words, and even think in our minds that come directly from those inner states. So this isn't about destiny, it's about what we create. And here's the crucial link. The classic 10 evil deeds aren't just some random list of forbidden things. The text frames them as the direct, tangible results, the outward symptoms of those underlying mental afflictions we were just talking about. Let's break them down. First up, you've got the 3 deeds of the body. These are pretty straightforward, right? They're the most obvious physical ways our inner state can manifest as harm in the world. Next, we have the 4 deeds of speech. And this really shows how that inner static, that unquiet mind, can just ripple outwards and cause real damage simply through the words we choose to use. And finally, we get to the 3 deeds of the mind itself. And if you look closely, you'll see these are basically those cliches we saw earlier, but now they've solidified into actual intentions. This is the source, the command center, where all the other actions really begin. So this brings us to a really big question. If those are the evil deeds, then what's a good deed? Is it just not doing that stuff? Is goodness just a void, an empty space where bad things aren't happening? Well, as you can probably guess, the text has a much more powerful answer. So let's dig into the 10 good deeds to find out what this essential difference really is. And honestly, this is the core insight of this whole discussion. And this just lays it out perfectly. The difference is not action versus inaction. It's the quality of mind behind the choice. An evil deed springs from that defiled, restless mind, driven almost automatically by afflictions. But a good deed, that comes from a wholesome mind, and its driver is totally different. It's understanding the harm and the drawbacks of those evil deeds. This is so important. Just not doing something bad isn't automatically a good deed. For example, not lying only becomes a genuinely good, wholesome action when it's motivated by a clear understanding of why lying is harmful. It's an active, conscious choice that comes from a place of wisdom, not just a passive habit. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway from this whole perspective? Well, it all comes back to one incredibly powerful idea: awareness of our own minds. Ultimately, what this framework shows us is that the real work isn't just about trying to control our external behavior. It's about looking inward, observing and understanding the mental state that's giving rise to our actions in the first place. Is it coming from that unquiet, afflicted place, or is it coming from a place of wholesome clarity? And that leaves us with a pretty powerful question to reflect on. Because if this view is right, then the choice between a wholesome or an unwholesome path isn't some grand decision we make once in a lifetime. It's happening constantly, right here, right now, with every single thought. The next seed of karma is about to be planted. What's it going to be?